millions of vulnerable Americans struggle to get reliable transportation to their medical appointments. That's why I started MedHall. Citi launched the Impact Fund to invest in both women and entrepreneurs of color like me so I can realize my vision and give everything I've got to my company and my community.
I got you.
For the love of people, for the love of community, for the love of progress. Citi.
Welcome to the PaleyFest Fall TV Preview. I'm Charisma DeBerry of Essence, and I'm delighted to be your host for a special conversation celebrating Fox's Our Kind of People. Thanks to PaleyFest official card and sponsor, Citi, for helping make this event possible. Today, we are thrilled to welcome members of the series' gifted cast and creative team. Please welcome cast members Yaya DaCosta, who plays Angela Bond, Morris Chestnut, who plays Raymond DuPont, Joe Morton, who plays Teddy Franklin, who will join us later, Nadine Ellis, who plays Leah Franklin-Dupont, and the executive producer, Karen Gist. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, this is so exciting for me to be here today. I have to say it's kind of a full circle moment. I was telling everyone that I actually wrote my senior thesis on Our Kind of People and the Black elite. So this is a very interesting way, to kind of culminate this. And this is very random. This was a random selection. So I'm so happy to be here. And for anyone who doesn't know, Loris Odom Graham's provocative, critically acclaimed book, Our Kind of People Inside America's Black Upper Class, is a classic. It is something, I went to an HBCU. There's an actual class about it at my HBCU. So it's something that I'm very familiar with. I just kind of want to ask everyone on the cast, you, Yaya, specifically, what was your relationship to the book before the series, if any?
Before the series, none at all. I didn't have a relationship with the book other than having heard about it, nor did I have a relationship with the place. Only secondhand stories from friends that I went to school with. You know, I'm from Harlem, but my parents were educators and made sure that all of their children got scholarships to the best schools in the country. So I went from a college preparatory, boarding high school, straight to an Ivy League, and I had a lot of friends who did frequent the Vineyard, but I had never been.
That's exciting. So Karen Gist is the executive producer of this amazing show. What was your relationship to the book, and why was it so important for you to bring this to the small screen?
My relationship with the book kind of goes back a few years. I actually remember where I was when I was reading it. I was in Miami on vacation, and I read the book and devoured the book. And I when I finished it, I called my agent to ask about developing it. And at the time, I can't remember who, but somebody already had the rights. So it was something that I wanted to do years ago and kind of put it in the back of my mind. And then fate just brought it back to me again to give me another chance. And I jumped at it. So I have a really personal connection with it. I've always wanted to kind of develop it out. And I'm so happy and lucky that I get to do that now with these wonderful people.
Yeah, and we're so lucky too. I'm super excited about it. Can you tell me, why did you particularly go into Oak Bluff? Because the book does cover, a myriad of the Black elite experience. Why was Oak Bluff so important to highlight?
Part of it is the history of the place, but also I went to Spelman. I also went to an HBCU. I went to Spelman College, and yes. And what I've always said about Spelman is that it feels like a womb for the students there. And when I started doing research about Oak Bluffs, that was what a lot of people said. A lot of that it feels like a place where you can just go and be free, and kind of it's like a womb for African Americans to summer. So there was that connection, and I think it's such a special place that no one seems to know about. And I can't tell you how many people have been surprised by the world of the show. So I think it's a great place to kind of open the door and show this beautiful place. And it's also visually stunning, even if it's in Wilmington right now. It's visually a stunning place to show some beautiful Black skin.
Yes, and speaking of beautiful Black skin, Morris. What is your description of this series in your own words? It's so interesting to see you going from Boys in the Hood now, right, to you kind of being this trust fund baby here in Oak Bluff and for our kind of people. So it's kind of like a
Right.
full circle moment in your career as well. So how can you describe what it means to be on the show and just your description of the show as you sit inside of it?
It's really exciting to be on the show. I didn't have that much experience with the book either. I mean, I'm born and raised in California, and the whole, we have Jack and Jill out there, but it feels like, for sororities, fraternities, brotherhoods, it doesn't feel as strong and as bonded out there in California as it is, on the East Coast. I know more about it now, even prior to me doing the show. But it's exciting to be in this world and reading the book and just exploring all the different themes and the different challenges of being in the Black elite.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of the Black elite and where you sit in the show,
Yeah.
your wife in the show,
Yes.
Nadine, you are a piece of work in this pilot. Okay. So I want to know for you, what was your experience with the Black elite?
Like everyone else, I didn't really have a huge connection to the book or to the vineyard at all. I'm also a New York girl. I'm a Queens girl, and the child of Jamaican immigrants. So I really had no connection to Jack and Jill. Everything that I've ever encountered or dealt with has been through film, through television, through books, but not necessarily this book. So it is really interesting to find this world and kind of open up this space that I don't know if we've ever really seen in this way, where we're seeing this opulence and we're seeing these dynamic people living their lives. And there's absolutely no apology for what you have and what you bring to the table. And I love that this next generation will have a really close tie to that.
So Leah is not so nice to our girl Angela. And I want to know, Yaya, how do you feel about playing a character who is penetrating this world, but you also kind of seen this world from you have your own Ivy League experience. So, but you're on the other side in the show. So what is it like to be Angela going into this world where she's facing such opposition?
It's I believe that every role we play as actors is on purpose. And there are sometimes lessons that our characters learn that kind of mirror things going on in our personal lives or on our sets. And so, this being my first time leading a show, I'm encountering things in real life that make me feel sometimes, I'm like, oh, this is new territory. How do I address this? And so it's really, like real life and the art that we're creating are living and growing and finding themselves at the same time. And so I'm just, here using everything, everything beautiful, everything difficult is fair material to work from. And so there's a lot of things just being found and worked out. And so, I think Angela has to confront other people's images, right? Other people's ideas about her, whether they be true or not, whether they resonate with how she feels about herself or not. And I'm like, oh, that's what that feels like. Okay, thank you, so-and-so, for preparing me for this scene, like literally real time.
I love that. And Karen, because there is so much conflict in this show, I feel that the book in itself, or the Black elite, for a lot of people, that's almost like an oxymoron. Like, the Black elite, what are you talking about? So going and creating this world for you, what did it mean to you to create conflict inside of the world when there's also just a natural conflict that exists inside of the themes of the show?
Well, the conflict that exists within the show is all character based, and that's what makes good TV and good, complicated, messy characters. So that's not a problem to me. That's just that's what goes into the cake to make the thing. In terms of the conflict kind of surrounding kind of our race and class in America, I just think it's a good time, and this is a good kind of vehicle to put some of that in story, so that it's not in a kind of a preachy way, but it's just kind of baked in to a lot of what our characters' drives are, a lot of what they're experiencing. I love that, one of my favorite things about this world is that we have so many different African-American characters, so they can be flawed and messy. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. We don't have to put the weight of the world on one character's shoulders. We can kind of just have a little bit more fun and freedom. And I hope TV is what we continue to do. But I love that we have this kind of playground to play with, and we don't have to have like the perfect Black character who's not allowed to say or do anything, or we'll judge that character we get to play. So I hope you guys are having fun with that, because it's fun to write it for sure.
And I want to ask everyone, anyone can kind of take this question. Why does TV need a show like Our Kind of People? Because personally, I never seen a show about upper middle class Black people. There were some, but this is a different level, right? We're taking it to a legacy of Black excellence where you can't remember or don't know people who didn't go to college or don't know people who aren't wealthy. And we've just never seen that depicted on TV. Why is that important now in this time? Anyone?
I'll jump in. I think it's really important at this time, because I think not to go in the political lane, but that's a part of our society, right? We just found ourselves coming out of an administration that really riled people up in a space of believing that there was otherism, and they are the reason why your life isn't going well. Whoever was in favor of our former president. And as well as there was this kind of, as Karen beautifully said, baked in idea that somehow anyone who looked like any of us needed to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And there is kind of an ignorance about our what's the word? Our
adversity within the community, kind of
diversity, as well as at what we have brought to the table in terms of Americans, yes, African Americans, but as Americans. So this idea that everyone needs to pull themselves up by the bootstrap and everyone is struggling is just not necessarily everyone's story. And I don't know if we've ever really delved into the space where the adversity is still there, but financially and the resources are also there, and what that brings and how we see those people flourish. And so I think it's really important at this time, when there's this remnants of otherism, that we do see people thriving.
Awesome. So now we have Joe Morton joining us, who plays Teddy Franklin on the show Our Kind of People. But Yaya, yes, please continue.
I really loved what Nadine shared, and I just wanted to add that, I see Angela's plight and thirst for getting what is hers, right? She feels this sense of deserving. She feels this sense of entitlement. I see her as a symbolic invitation for, the greater Black populations to really feel into that and think about what is ours and what do we deserve and what is owed. Oak Bluff is a surviving place, but it's not the only place. There were many, many, many thriving communities all around the country that were decimated, destroyed, burned down, killed. People were murdered for being us and succeeding. We built this country. So yes, we deserve. Yes, we are out to get what's ours. And so to have people on TV, on one hand, the members of that community in Martha's Vineyard representing what it looks like and what it feels like to have. And then on the other hand, a character who's representing what it looks like and feels like to need, to thirst, and to deserve. And I would love that, the essence of that entitlement to permeate throughout our communities.
Love that. Morris?
So it's for me, we have as artists, actors, creators, we do have a responsibility. And one of the things when you say why this project, why now, is because from an inspirational standpoint for me, I remember when I felt when Barack Obama first ran for president that he was going to win. And I brought my son into the ballot booth with me, just so he can see and feel that moment of inspiration and aspiration where it happened where Barack Obama became president. And just the mere fact that millions of young boys and young girls across the world saw a Black man as president. We don't know what that fostered in someone's mind, just the fact that they can see it and then they can believe it. And one thing with our show, to where we have the wealthy African Americans on the show, is that we didn't get it by playing basketball or baseball or football, because now a lot of us feel, and rightfully so, that is our ticket. When you have a young child, he feels it's his ticket out of quote unquote whatever situation that they're in, is if they play a sport. Here, the one thing that I'm really excited about is fostering something in a young child's minds that he can get it through business. He can get it through other means than just playing sports. So to me, it's very important, the images that we project and these characters that we have. I think we can inspire a lot of young people around the world.
I love that. And Joe, let's bring you in here. What do you feel is a theme that you most resonated with when reading the script that made you excited about joining this cast?
Well, what made me excited about joining the cast was, one, the cast itself. Two, the idea of accomplishment, education, and refinement. That's what the Black elites seem to be about. These are folks which we haven't seen this on TV before. These are folks who, after at least 3 generations, that means they fought through any number of different things to get where they are today. And they have very clear ideas of who they are and who they protect and who they want around them and who they don't want around them. They are as double-minded as almost any other Black person. In the book, he talks about the fact that they may write a check to the NAACP, but they will not sit down and have lunch with an NAACP social worker. This is, again, the kind of thing that they're about. I think their pride is about accomplishment and education. They want their children to go to the best schools. It's as Morris was saying before, this is not about becoming a rap star or a football player or a basketball player. This is about getting an education at one of the 3 schools that we talk about all the time, Spelman, Morehouse, and Howard, and then going on to Harvard and Princeton and Yale and becoming a lawyer, a doctor. These are things that have to do with accomplishment. And I think when it comes to Black people on television, we very seldom talk about them in terms of accomplishment other than becoming equal with the rest of society in America. This is the first time they've already accomplished, and so they don't have to feel like they have to be equal with anybody.
I love that. And Karen, why was it important for you to incorporate something like Juneteenth or double consciousness or colorism? I mean, colorism is a huge theme. Actually, I'll stay there. Colorism is a huge theme inside of the book. And many people have said that when they pictured what our kind of people would look like, right, they had a vision for the aesthetic of the show. Do you feel like you purposefully chose to maybe go in a different direction there with your casting choices?
Yeah, I had a lot of conversations about that. They're very early on, and even before the show was picked up, in terms of the color of skin. I really want to make sure that the show is diverse and shows the diversity within the community. And going back to what we were just talking about, or what Morris was talking about earlier, it's about images. And I think that it's our responsibility to put things up on the screen, whether it's the story is about that or not. Whoever is walking by the TV at any given time just sees this family in this show and these people just being who they are unapologetically. And I remember, when we talk about images, and remember when the Cosby Show was out, and part of what I remember about that show was everyone was like, that's not real, only because we hadn't really seen it before. It hadn't been celebrated before. It was real in my house. It was real with my family, but like they hadn't seen it. And so we have to find the way to balance the images that we're putting out there, and the news isn't going to do it for us. So we have to do that. We have to find the stories. We have to platform who we are and the different versions of us. And then it's also up to us to make sure that it doesn't feel like there are two different versions, but at the same time, we're all kind of coming together, and there is a sameness within our community. So it's all about images to me. It's all about making sure that there's diversity in the skin, in the color, in the hair, like all of it. I want to celebrate all of it. And fortunately, these guys decided to sign on. So we did. But going back to the colorism thing, I wanted to make sure that we weren't just putting forth an image of like a light-skinned, long-haired girl who's rich, and then all of the poor people are dark. Like that, that was a non-starter for me. I did not want that. That was not the show I wanted to make, and I made that really clear early on.
That's amazing, because obviously, because people it sparked conversation, because
we should ask why. That again, that goes back to images and what we put in front of people, what we're feeding people, and that's we got to make the dinner plate with something else. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I have to ask, I'm going to pitch this to everyone. I know we're running out of time, but when you take on and tackle such a large topic in such a historical place like Oak Bluffs, does this require a level of research from the entire cast? Or you like, listen, I'm going to send everyone a copy of Lawrence Otis Graham's book. I need you to highlight these portions. I'm also going to send, I'm going to send W.B. Du Bois. Like, where was it? And I mean, was that a important thing for you to make sure that everyone had background knowledge on what they were stepping into?
Well, most of these guys were reading it already. Like, so I think they're reading the book and enjoying the book, and we're kind of plugged in and interested in the world. So they prep themselves.
And I just talked to Joe. Joe has a wealth of knowledge about everything, but in particular, Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, my daughter spent a lot of time up at Martha's Vineyard, and that sort of society, Oak Bluffs, is a place where I spend a lot of time. And it's interesting, just that history. I mean, Morris and I years ago did a film called The Inkwell, which in the book, by the way, is not talked about in a very sort of positive way. Because again, I think the folks who go to Oak Bluffs see themselves in a particular way, and according to them, we were not it. But one of the wonderful things that happened is when we shot it here in Wilmington, and the beaches are vast and wonderful and beautiful, Oak Bluffs and Inkwell is a very small beach. It's a beach that's been in existence since the late 1800s. That community has been up there since the late 1800s. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about this group of people is that once 1865 happened, the first thing that they did is they went to the religious organizations who were putting together schools for people who are now called ex-slaves. These folks, for however reason, for any number of different reasons, had come across either property or money, or in Tulsa, for instance, they were people who had their own businesses, and the folks who worked in Tulsa worked for the white folks with domestics, but they were spending their money in Black businesses, and those businesses thrived. And that's who these folks are. And those are the folks who go to Oak Bluffs and go to Sag Harbor. Again, their pride is all about accomplishment, and look what they've done. So it's such a fertile ground to be playing in, this show. So it's just, the possibilities are enormous.
So for a show about Black excellence, and first of all, there's a lot of drama going on. So people do not think this is a bore, because we are talking about achievement and excellence and some stuff going down that you may not expect in this show, for sure. I just want to ask this question that comes from our festival sponsor, Citi. Our Kind of People celebrates the innate natural beauty of Black women. what do you want people to take away from watching this show, particularly as it pertains to our aesthetic, our beauty, and valuing and appreciating us? And I'm going to ask Nadine to answer that.
Okay. Well, I think overall, being a Black woman in this society, there can always be a feeling of being invisible. And the only way you are visible is if you kind of find yourself locking into the European aesthetic. And I think what the show is doing in a beautiful way, even just watching the promo the other day, and, you know, Yaya's face came on, her hair, I mean, she just looks so gorgeous. And it was like, that is what we need to see, so that you don't have comments that come in that are like, oh, well, what's it? Can you fix your hair? Or, you know, for anyone in any industry, we know that Black people definitely are discriminated against depending on whether they have locks or they're wearing their hair naturally, or their hair just doesn't fall into that European aesthetic. And so I think it's really important to show the 360 idea of who we are as people, as Black women, and how vast our look and our beauty can be without somehow stepping into a European aesthetic. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. I mean, as you see, the hair is long and straight, so there's nothing wrong with it, that we can be beautiful in many different realms.
Thank you all so much. I mean, we can talk about this beautiful show that Karen has put together forever, but our time has been cut short. So I want to thank everyone so much. I'm so looking forward to the first season of Our Kind of People. I want to tell everyone who's watching, thank you for joining us for this special PaleyFest Fall TV preview conversation with members of the wonderful cast and creative team behind Fox's Our Kind of People. Thanks to PaleyFest's official card and sponsor, Citi. You can learn more about Paley Center by visiting paleycenter.org. Thank you so much and take care. And thank you all. We cannot wait to see Our Kind of People.
Thank you very much, Charisma. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.